Greetings, YouTube. Happy Wednesday night for those of you in the States, or happy, Friday morning. Most of you across the pond are still asleep at the time of this recording, but maybe, just maybe, you'll wake up to this video. And if you are waking up to this video, good morning. Hope you had a good night's rest. So, here's the deal. We know for a fact that the biggest game-changing champion of 2018 is Mr. Corvus Glaive. Corvus actually made Emma Frost look pretty easily beatable. And Kabam pays attention to this, right? They know this. They know that Corvus is the new Blade in so many ways, and that so many people have encouraged me to 565 my Corvus, even though he is not awakened, because his awakened ability really doesn't make that much difference and makes pretty much no difference on his attack. But Kabam also knows that if they keep champs like Corvus really great, then at some point, they're going to have to lose units and potions and revives. And they are in the business of making money because they are a for-profit business. So today, I'm going to touch on why this champion was created, whether or not this actually meets the goal of Kabam in having this be the Corvus counter, if you will. And then lastly, how they're hoping that this champion will reignite the Doctor Strange movement, especially since it looks as though we are going to get a 5-star Doctor Strange opportunity, Grandmaster featured Crystal the same way that we did Electro a couple weeks ago. So, without further ado, let's talk about this champion. Now, Symbiote Supreme is somebody that is coming to the contest tomorrow, or today, again, if you're waking up and it's Thursday. And, we're just going to skip this whole description because you can read it yourself. By the way, this is the link that was sent out to everybody in their in-game inbox when it talks about the champion coming to the contest. That's what this all is. I am kind of amazed that they're still using a 4-star to talk about stats. 5 stars really are what we care about. Yes, I guess for newer champions, you won't worry about the 5-star, but for anybody who is in the, quote-unquote in-game community, you're not going to ever use a 4-star for Alliance War attack or Alliance War defense unless you have nobody else, I guess. Okay, so Mystic Champ, first finally of 2018. We know this. Symbiote Supreme gains 100% less power from attacking, blocking, and being struck, but gains 16.5% of his max power every 9 seconds, which kind of reminds me a little bit of Doctor Strange, but maybe this is geared, and we'll get into this in a moment, but this is geared to be ramped up big time for Mystic Dispersion. This is also why Kabam, I believe, did not tweak Mystic Dispersion more as a attacking synergy, because they knew that they were developing this champion that really relies on Mystic Dispersion to be as good as it can be. So those of you who still have invested in Mystic Dispersion and you want to make the most of it, this champion will certainly do that for you. It says this is slower about half the rate of that Doctor Strange gains power, but Symbiote Supreme makes up for this difference with his genetic potential power gain. We'll talk about that right now. Each time a buff or a stagger effect on the opponent ends, gain 25 genetic potential to a maximum of 100. So basically 25 genetic potential is 25% or 1/4 of that maximum that you can gain. And you'll get 50 genetic potential or 50 more percent if a buff ends due to a nullify or stagger effect. So you combine that with the already power gain and suddenly you are like Doctor Strange, if not more. I don't think that this is going to be that effective on defense, and seeing how easy that champion was to beat this month in even the epic/uncollected difficulty, this champion for sure is going to most be utilized on offense. Now, genetic blessings, passive. Symbiote Supreme can manifest 3 different genetic blessings every 15 seconds. He switches to the next in the following order. And then it's got that Cunnings, Null Shadow, and Set's Fang. Each time a blessing triggers 100% of genetic potential is consumed to gain up to 100% of a bar of power. So this is interesting because the developer notes that this is the power gain, which compensates for the lower base power gain speed compared to Doctor Strange. A full 100 genetic potential is worth a full bar of power when the new blessing triggers. So the power control and the power gain can be ramped up big time once you get to that 100 point. 100% chance when this blessing is triggered to immediately nullify all buffs. 709.8 direct damage is passively dealt to the opponent for each buff nullified based on genetic potential. So that's decent, but if your champion has, 22,000 health, then 709.8 direct damage isn't the worst. Active gain a 5% chance to place a stagger passive on the opponent 5% chance is so low, right? Critical hits increase the chance to 50%. Note the anti-buff blessing Symbiote Supreme will always start with this blessing active, so he'll remove whatever buffs you have on you right at the start of the fight, dealing damage. Okay, so there are two things I want to cover in this video, really at this point. The first is to talk about the Doctor Strange buff and what I believe is anticipation for the release of this 5-star champion who used to be so good before patch 12.0 nerfed him to the ground, but this is a kind of a way to bring him back to form. And then the Corvus counter that I mentioned at the start of this video. Okay, so we're going to scroll down. You can read all the specifics. I don't want this video to be 15 minutes long. I want to get to the main points that I wanted to talk about when I'm creating this video. So we're going to skip all the specials. Please read those accordingly on your own time. Again, I don't want this to be a crazy, crazy long. Okay, so we're going to scroll all the way down to Synergy bonuses, Mystic Masters, Doctor Strange. Now, I know Mordo's in this as well, but check out this Doctor Strange. Deal 50% of base attack as direct damage when nullifying a buff off the opponent. And there are certain opponents where there are so many buffs that you can nullify that this can cause a Thorns-like effect to occur. So if you were fighting with somebody in like the epic mode and you're like, wait, why did I just lose some health? It's kind of like that, you know? So this is going to be effective. This is going to limit certain champs from going in. I can see people like my Hyperion also struggling at times, but then again, I used Hype to also counter a lot of damage. So this looks good on paper, but the actual practicality of it in a fight is a different matter. We have some unique synergies for Dormammu and Mephisto, but I want to scroll all the way down to the Corvus counter. We've talked about the recommended mastery for Mystic Dispersion. I do believe if you have this champion and you take them to say like rank 4 or even rank 5 as a 5-star, you are going to want to invest in Mystic Dispersion, maybe even maxed, so that you can take this champion to the maximum of what they're supposed to be. Deep Wounds, you should have maxed anyway. It is probably top 2 favorite mastery of myself, and Assassin's in the top 5 as well. Okay, check this out. Strong matchups, Corvus Glaive, a.k.a. this person was created to counter Corvus. So Corvus will strip away his cruelty and true damage buffs right at the beginning of the fight, significantly cutting his damage potential and taking a chunk out of the health bar right at the beginning of the fight. So I don't have Corvus high enough to where I use him in questing. So those of you who maybe brought in Corvus, I would be curious to know what you think of this Corvus counter. I will say this, Corvus is not the best defender, right? There are so many counters to him on defense. So if you are creating somebody to be a counter for Corvus, it's really kind of a confusing way to do it because you're not going to get that much of an effect out of it versus like a counter to Medusa, for example, or even MODOK with True Strike. Now, I will say this. Corvus is OP, and I love Corvus, and those of you who have a 6-star Corvus, I am so salty and jealous, but also congratulations. I want Corvus to stay as effective as he can be going forward. Those of you who see a Mystic matchup, though, are you really going to bring a Corvus knowing that you have the class disadvantage anyway? It would be one thing if this was like a hidden defender and you brought Corvus, and not only was Corvus nerfed to the ground in this matchup, but also you thought you were getting like a class advantage, and so you were taking Corvus in to say against a tech opponent, thinking that you would have an easy matchup, and then suddenly it turns into this enemy, and you're like, well, oh no, I'm fighting a 6-star version, and I might have to time out or something. I don't know. But in this case, because he's a Mystic champ, I just don't see how the Corvus counter is going to be that big of an impact on the game, because I don't think many people put Corvus on defense, if at all, and even if they did, there's just other counters. So what do you think? I do see some potential for this champion to be an Alliance War defender, especially when it comes to starting on nodes that give like a special 2 automatically. But at the same time, the special 1 is so easy. Maybe it's the easiest special 1 we've seen to dodge this year, even easier in some ways than a Red Skull, for example, or a Heimdall. But what do you think? Do you think this is going to impact? I get what they were trying to do because they realized Corvus is kind of becoming too strong, and they have promised that they aren't going to nerf champions. So instead of pissing off the community, if you will, they're just introducing champions to counter that, which on paper is a smart decision by Kabam. But in this case, I don't really know if it's going to work. I think Corvus is still going to be really amazing. But heck, what do I know? I don't have Corvus, at least not to rank 4 or 5 yet. It's just at rank 3. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching this video. And if you're excited to go for this champion, good luck in the arena this weekend. May you at least get 3 hours of sleep. And remember what sunlight and oxygen feel like on your body.